Thank you for calling the California Department of Public Health Vital Records. Your call may be monitored for quality assurance purposes.
We'll do a thing called freedom.
You gonna press the flesh, Pappy? Do a little politicking? I'll press your petition. You little son bitch. You don't tell your Pappy how to cut the electorate. We ain't one at a time in here. We're mass communicating.
Warning. You're listening to the Agenda 31 podcast with Corey Ibe and Todd McGreevy. Agenda 31 exposes government fraud, theft, and deception. Agenda 31 endorses peaceful enforcement of the Bill of Rights by the people of the several states. Agenda 31 explains how United States citizens have forsaken their capacity to protect their own rights. Corey and Todd engage with local, state, and federal government on powerful issues of identity, property rights, law, oaths of office, taxation, privacy, and more. Their approach is rooted in the very specific legal foundation of state citizenship. Listeners of the Agenda 31 podcast are challenged to take the lowest risks with the highest rewards. Your hosts want to know, what's your strategy to make a difference? Due to the unique division of political authority in the United States, U.S. citizens are residents in every state and should not attempt to copy the strategies employed by the hosts of the Agenda 31 broadcast without first consulting legal counsel. Enjoy!
You are going to change America in a way that usually only war and fluoride can. War and fluoride can. War and fluoride can.
It's time for us to become private central banking heretics, to stop believing that this is the way life is supposed to be, because it isn't.
The courts said that there are clearly two governments in each state. We have a state government and a federal government. Okay. The state government that we see today is a franchise of the federal government, as I mentioned before, by voluntary consent of the people, but that doesn't mean the original state government doesn't exist.
Self-determination isn't for everybody.
Well, that's exactly the whole point. The 14th Amendment protects U.S. citizens from the several states, but provides no protection from the federal government.
U.S. citizens have several different qualities. One, under Title V, they're considered federal personnel. You can trace back the foundation of their identity to a document the government owns.
Wake up! A state-issued birth record is government property.
You know what? There's going to be 50 different ways to skin this cat.
Today, we don't know. We're like a hotel that checks you in but never checks you out.
That's not courage. That's a mafia-style sit-down and divvy up what's good for the bosses.
You know, you're going to have to shut up or I'm going to have you arrested.
Hey, how does it feel to be a Republican right now?
It's a hoax. It's a big hoax.
It's a little bit overreaching to think there's going to be 3,100 people trying to pay attention like we do.
Why don't we devalue Social Security numbers? Why not require financial institutions not to use Social Security numbers so that there's no longer the incentive to steal Social Security numbers?
The Social Security number is absolutely critical. We need them and we have to use them. But we have to treat them as an identifier.
Yes, we'll make slaves out of all of you.
Very much part of Agenda 21, in my humble opinion. And it's a ramp-up to a United Nations September convention that's coming. It's going to be Agenda 21 on steroids.
Yeah, California is crazy.
It is.
I mean, it's out of control.
The U.S. sitting senator is suggesting using RICO laws to be applied to global warming skeptics.
We're not policing the world. We're not policing the world. We're not policing the world. No, we don't have a military-industrial complex.
Only a state citizen can travel around without license plates, without registration, and without a driver's license and not intend to break the law.
Because you can't have prosperity if you're constantly under the risk of a terrorist attack.
Who the government? Who the terrorists?
Okay, guys, let's get out there and make a difference.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Agenda 31. This is your co-host, Todd McGreevy, being joined by
Corey Ibe. Greetings, Todd.
In the morning to you, Corey. Happy Saturday, June 25th, 2016. You're listening to episode 87, Agenda 31 listeners. Thank you for tuning in live at agenda31.org/stream. Those of you that are tuned in live and in the chat room there at agenda31.org. And we appreciate you checking us out on episode 87. You may be listening to us on the playback after the No Agenda show on the No Agenda stream at noagendastream.com. That comes on every Thursday and Sunday. That being the No Agenda show is live on their stream at 11 a.m. Central with Curry and Dvorak, the media assassins. And in the wake of the Brexit vote, the revolutionary vote in England, I would say that if you want to tune in and get the lowdown on what that means, that you're not going to hear in any other mainstream media, I would highly recommend listening to Curry and Dvorak's deconstruction of the Brexit vote. They've been following it for some time. I know their Sunday show coming up tomorrow will be all about it. So if you're listening to us on the playback, you just heard their deconstruction of it, so you don't need to hear us talk about it. But that vote was pretty important, Corey. Did you follow that at all?
Well, I was pretty busy last week. I did follow it a bit, but not as much as probably the average person.
Point well taken, and we're going to get to what you've been up to because it was a huge deal this week, what you've been dealing with, and I apologize.
Did I lose you?
No, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I have just gone mute.
Oh, great.
Oh, no, there you are. There you are.
No, you've had a lot of stuff going on, Corey, and I obviously you weren't sitting around the television watching the Brexit vote. It was. In all fairness, in terms of the realm of things that have gone on in the last decade, in terms of power to the people, if you will, it's kind of a big deal.
Oh, it's a huge deal. That's for sure.
You know, I just am flabbergasted that the vote wasn't fixed. Frankly, the ballot boxes and the voting machines and how they were counted were not fixed.
I did read something that I thought was very interesting. That I thought. The vote was probably rigged, and the amount of people who voted to get out the participation was unexpectedly high.
Yeah, I think it was overwhelming. It had to be to overcome the fix, the fix that was in. It had to be huge to overcome that. So probably larger than we know. And if you hearken back to the origins of mankind standing up to tyranny, our brethren, our ancient, or whatever you want to call them, ancestors during the Magna Carta era is what started the whole concept of one's own individual rights, and that was over there in England. So the Brits have shown they have the capacity to stand upright and fight for their independence. There's a series of cycles here that I guess we're dealing with over the millennia, and hopefully this is a sign of things to come. It being less collectivism, more individualism is where I'm going with this. It certainly is a better result than the EU continues to be a onerous collectivist New World Order apparatus.
It's a big deal for the UK to pull out. I mean, the intricate nature in which these nations are all intertwined with commerce, politics, everything else is a big deal. And it's going to take a while to extricate the UK from the EU, which will have unknown effects on the market. It's really a fascinating thing to watch. It's going to be, I predict, a lot harder to smoothly extricate from the EU than it was to get all entangled in it.
Yeah, I was listening to in the car yesterday, the Marketplace. I should have pulled this clip. I always forget some things in preparation for a show, but my favorite show to hate is Marketplace on NPR. This totally elitist Kai Ryssdal hosts it, and he had this guy on there that was a Brit talking about the vote, and the guy point blank said out loud, "This is a setback to the New World Order." And they go, "Okay, we're going to move on now. We're going on to the next topic." He said, just quickly, got that guy off got him off the air, and went into the woe is me dynamic of some guy reporting about how difficult it's going to be for the banking industry to handle this.
Poor bankers.
Because in London, apparently, there's I can't remember the exact number. It was like tens of thousands of bankers that live and work in London as a central banking area that are from America, our own, United States banks that have presence in London, and how because of this vote that they're going to have to leave, and they're looking at going to Germany or maybe Berlin. But the challenge is that it's just there's not enough room in other places for them to go. There's so many of them.
Right. Just what we need.
I thought it was pretty fascinating, that whole segment. So, Corey, for those that are new to the show here, we hope we're getting new listeners every episode. And the Agenda 31 is riffing off Agenda 21 in terms of the alliteration, if you will. And a little bit of, since we're played back on the No Agenda stream, and we are avowedly inspired by the podcasting efforts of the No Agenda show, we collapsed Agenda 21 and No Agenda into Agenda 31. 31 standing for the 3,100 counties across America. And it is our goal, our mission here at Agenda 31, to help people understand the dynamics of how they identify themselves and how to cease identifying themselves as federal U.S. citizens, to understand how that is politically injurious to your well-being, politically injurious to your status, and restricts your ability to eradicates your ability to enforce the Bill of Rights that we're all led to believe is so paramount and important, as we're dutifully said to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance, from kindergarten on. And that this concept that the Constitution stands for something. Well, it stands for a lot, but it only stands for those that are, as we assert, Article 4 state citizens. So we're looking to inspire and assist Article 4 state citizens in all 3,100 counties across America. Thus, Agenda 31. That is our agenda. And Corey has been averring, A-V-E-R, the verb averring, his Article 4 state citizenship for some time. And it has come to a head with regards to a particular matter that began on the eve of Thanksgiving weekend last November, when his PT Cruiser was stopped roadside and his property was taken, and the birth record that bears the same name, similar attributes to Corey's name, was charged with driving without a license and so on. And Corey, you had the day in court, apparently, was Wednesday, June 22nd.
Well, another day in court.
Another day, yes.
Not the day in court. Yeah, last Wednesday, I was in court from 10 in the morning. Actually got there about 9:40, all the way until 4:30 in the afternoon. And many hours, they had me up and down and from one courtroom to another. It was full court press. I mean, literally, it was me. And fortunately, there were witnesses there. Without witnesses there, I would have been toast. So I cannot emphasize enough how important it is for people to band together. It was 3 people who came to the court hearing, and they spent their entire day. And boy, did it make the court nervous. The court tried to flush everybody out. I mean, they run a star chamber there. Anybody who stands up, tries to use code, laws, or anything to defend your rights in these star chambers, every single one of the federal personnel in that courtroom have conspired to work against you. It is incredible.
This is in the L.A. Superior County Courthouse, correct? Hello?
Man, I'm losing you.
Corey.
Yeah, I'm here.
This is in the L.A. County Superior Courthouse, correct?
Yeah, County of Los Angeles Superior Courthouse, Courthouse West in Van Nuys, room 102 and room 103. Very amazing display of just corruption, twisting of words, the courts refusing to engage in any type of meaningful pursuit of justice or truth. And it was really incredible. I mean, at one point, there's this to me was really indicative of just the entire way the court is operating. And I've said many times that I have no faith in the Superior Court. They're corrupt. They're disgusting. They're all federal personnel. which we'll cover in a little bit. This week, in the crucible of combat in the courtroom, a factual piece of information dawned on me when the commissioner was trying to explain that they have jurisdiction, because I was in city of Los Angeles, driving in the county of Los Angeles, and traveling in the state of California. Those are the terms she used. And my response was, all of the agencies that she listed off have federal employment identification numbers. And that was really something I think that was kind of a pivotal moment during battle to kind of pull the veil away to help understand who is federal government and who is state government under Article 4. And I think the idea that all you need to do is find out if they have a federal employment identification number as far as the agency is concerned, then you're obviously dealing with federal personnel.
These agencies and actors have the trappings of state and local attributes around them, because they have seals and they have emblems and they have titles and they have the word state in them and the word county in them.
And California and everything else. They have all these other things like that, yeah.
But when you boil it down to the barest root that there is, they all have EINs, federal employee identification numbers. And it's been right, in front of us the whole time.
It has the entire time. It's such a simple concept to determine whether or not somebody's federal personnel, or if they work for one of the several states, is just determining their federal employment identification number. Very, very simple.
Yeah, I mean, it's been right in front of us the whole time. Everybody's familiar with the EIN. It's the if you own a business, if you've ever had an LLC, you get an EIN so that you're guaranteed to pay those taxes on any type of profits you might make. And so when you brought that to bear inside the courthouse, Corey, to this commissioner, and you said you were in room 102, room 103. They also call them departments, right?
Departments.
Department 102, 103. And you and I, just for everybody, Corey and I have spoken already about this, and he's debriefed me on what's happened. I've got a lot of notes here, and so there were two. They put you through two commissioners, one in the morning, one in the afternoon.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and it was just a display of how much the courts are manipulated and how much they show that they don't need, if you agree to U.S. citizenship, everything that they did to me in court, it might be immoral, but they have the legal high ground. So if you have a social security number, if you have a driver's license, if you have all the obligations of a 14th Amendment citizen, then everything that the courthouse did to me on Wednesday was fully within the bounds of the Constitution. Even when they're saying things like, for instance, we'll get into this later, but one of the commissioners said that do you understand you have a right? And then she used a term that there's no term like that in the Constitution. There's no possible way that the Constitution says that I have a right to what the judge or what the commissioner said. And when I brought that up, she said, well, for purposes of this court, that's what that term means in the Constitution. I mean, they just completely redefined the Constitution, everything. And what they were doing was redefining the Constitution where you have the right to counsel in the Sixth Amendment. And the court took the position that the term counsel is used in the Constitution. The federal Constitution could only mean a state bar licensed attorney who has a license from an agency in the state of California that has a federal employment identification number. That's how much the 14th Amendment gives them power to manipulate the Constitution.
And didn't she also assert to you in this that you asserted that the address was incorrect on the charging document? And if I recall what you shared with me correctly, her response was, if it is incorrect, then we're going to charge you for making it incorrect.
Yeah. What?
Or how did that go? That part.
Well, so the rules that apply to the citation as a charging document are governed by the California Judicial Council. And the Judicial Council says, the different attributes on the citation have to be completed a certain way, and the information on the citation has to relate to something else. For the particular address information, it said it must be an address where the court can send mail to the to the arrestee or defendant. I'm not sure how it words it. And the address that he used, and I told him, I can't get any mail there. There's no way the court can mail information to me on that document. Well, the problem is, in order for them to change the charging document and start mailing stuff somewhere else, they have to follow the rules and either bring in new charges, which is what they did, but they didn't update the address. They brought in new charges based on what they observed on the faulty charging document, and then continue to use that address in the charging document, the official court file. The only address that is from the state is an incorrect address. They're refusing to correct it, and now they're just sending mail to my non-domestic mailing address, but converting that to be compliant with the federal domestic mailing manual and the federal zoning improvement plan. And I lodged a motion to strike to remove all that address information from the documents of the prosecution. And I also had put in a motion to compel to get more evidence. And the public defender, who is a federal employee, worked with the prosecution to stop all of that.
Well, and when they're telling you out loud in this proceedings that for purposes of this proceeding, what the Constitution states in black and white, we're going to say it means something else. When they say that, that's their way, in my view, of saying the Constitution has no place in these proceedings. They're just, it's not really germane. I've heard judges say that out loud in several proceedings. The Constitution has no bearing there. So they kind of play act that the Constitution had something to do with this, but it doesn't in their world. They're adjudicating an asset. They're adjudicating a birth record. That's what they're dealing with. And you just happen to be the cat. They look at you, Corey, and everybody else that came in there. We've played the loudspeaker, before of what people hear when they're in there. It's just, you are a piece of chattel. You are a cow to be milked, and that's all they're doing in there. They're not even remotely interested in exploring any type of justice or.
Oh, not at all.
You get zero. So to harken back a little bit though on what you said with regards to witnesses, you're talking not witnesses you called on the stand. You're talking about just people in the gallery watching, correct?
Yeah, people who listened to the show. Luis was there.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of his friends were there. I don't know if they want their names on the air or not, but one of them was Gabriella. We talked about her. She's got an issue coming up in Downey. And I'll be in court there to witness and provide testimony if needed, if the courts are going to behave in the same manner that they behaved in L.A. She'll be in the Downey court. But I can't emphasize enough how nervous it made the court to have witnesses in there, because they knew what they were going to have to do with me was going to be unethical, illegal, and unconstitutional. But they didn't want any witnesses there. And so it definitely had an effect. I just can't emphasize enough. It's really difficult. It requires an entire day. That's what they do. This is now, I think, the second entire day that has taken in court, plus multiple filings. I mean, this is incredibly difficult, just like all battles are. But a support system is, it's paramount. If you know somebody who's going to fight a ticket, figure out a way to get people in that courtroom, because they will make you be the very last person. They'll sweep everybody out. They'll intimidate the people sitting in the audience like they did with me. one of the sheriff's deputies, which I'll go back and get her name on Monday. Her behavior was disgusting. When there were two people in the courtroom who were fighting, and neither one of us wanted an attorney. And so what they did to the guy...
Two separate matters, correct?
Two separate matters, yeah. So they go through the whole cattle call with everybody else, and 99.9% of the people say, guilty with an explanation, whatever. And they end up with thousands of dollars in fine over and over again. The average fine that I saw in there was like $400 or $500. There were tons of fines for people who, after getting these generous discounts, as the court called it, they were paying over $1,400. There was one woman in there who, I went out and took a break from sitting in the courtroom and just walked outside for a second. And there was one woman who I spoke to for just a moment. She had two kids with her, and I saw her, like, her voice cracking at the stand. She was just terrified, didn't know what to do. She's got young kids, and she told me her husband died late last year, and that she doesn't know what to do. They've taken away her license. She's got two kids to support. She's going to lose her apartment, and she's a widow. It's fucking insane. These people are disgusting. She didn't hurt anybody. She didn't do anything. And they're just like, oh, yep, you got to pay this. They are going to make children homeless because of this. These people, make no mistake, these people working in these courtrooms are disgusting enemies of the people. And they have absolutely no moral character, no human decency, and they will absolutely tyrannize your family, your children, everything. I watched it happen to a widow where they are going to take, she's barely making it, raising two children, and they are going to put her in the street for a crime that did not affect anybody except for these motherfucking bastards in the court. I'm a little bit pissed.
All over a little piece of plastic, whether or not she had a little piece of plastic under the guise of public safety and a society where there's norms and we have to be in control of things, and it dawned me the other day, the garbage truck comes up our street, and it's the every now and then they'll bring the rear loader in and they'll have guys on the back of it to grab, I don't know, spring cleaning, junk, whatever it is. And it just dawned on me, these guys are standing on the little platform, hanging off the edge of the back of this huge truck, careening down the street. There's no seatbelt, right?
All right.
But by God, if you're inside your vehicle and you don't have a seatbelt on, you could have a cavity search on yourself within 20 minutes. You say the wrong thing to the guy, he gets to pull you over because of probable cause because you didn't have a seatbelt on, and your world is upside down. And meanwhile, GovCo employees can hang off the back of a truck and stand on a little 1 foot by 2 foot piece of metal and completely, it's okay, no problem. So I see that as the total basic evidence of the hypocrisy of this cloak of benevolence that government is bestowing upon us. It's all bullshit.
Another example of that was in the courtroom. They go around, they are like white on rice if they see a cell phone in the courtroom. Like if you're in the audience and you're using a cell phone, you open up your cell phone or anything, there's signs everywhere that says no cell phones. Yet every single one of the court staff are all playing on their phones. Wall court is in session, including the deputies and the female deputy that I saw that would intimidate the witnesses. She went up. In fact, I forgot to mention the guy before me that was saying he didn't want an attorney. That female deputy went up, leaned up on the defense table right next to the defendant, and she starts huffing and hawing. And when he's saying, look, I just want to represent myself, this female deputy is up there going, loud enough for everybody in the audience to hear. She's leaned back so she's facing the audience and about 2 feet away from the defendant, making all these, third grade, like she's a little kid not getting a sucker that she wanted, and then just scowling at everybody in the audience, just scowling. And then the people who were in the audience after everybody was out, and there were just the people that were there to watch my case, boy, did they started calling them my friends. I mean, they were so derogatory. and so hostile towards people and just open about it while they're on their phones telling you can't be on a phone. You could see they're on Facebook, Twitter, playing around. It has nothing to do with what's going on. And that's it. I'm still pissed.
It's a city without slavery, a city without masters. It proves that no one needs a master.
Can't have a city without masters, Corey.
Yeah, that's right.
The result of we're going to do like macro to micro real quick here. The result of the proceedings was that the second commissioner got exasperated with you, despite, I'm certain, of your completely professional decorum. You didn't have an outburst or yell motherfuckers like you just did a few minutes ago on the show. You kept your cool, I'm sure, 150%, and yet they deemed you disingenuous, I think was the word they told you, and combative and incompetent to
unnecessarily delaying court process.
Yeah.
I mean, the stuff that they said about me went on and on, which was what they are doing. So they're doing all of this stuff. I showed up on time, prepared, ready to go. They keep pushing it all the way to the end of the court and then blame me for what they're doing.
So the result of declaring you incompetent was that they assigned a public defender to the case. And I think the short version is the public defender proceeded to dismantle all of your motions you'd previously made.
Yes, that's exactly what she did.
Yeah. So much for your public defender being an advocate of you.
Right. Yeah.
Obviously, that person is very compromised and completely in the bag.
And that person is federal personnel.
Yeah. I keep forgetting to bring this up too. This whole thing about not recording in the courthouse.
Yeah.
It needs to be one of the biggest flags that people that care about justice, people that listen to this show, people that want to do something where they live, need to focus on. Because if we can't record what goes on inside these courtrooms, then they are in control of the record. They're in control of, they can just lie about what you said, what Corey said. I'll give you a short example. I go to a grand jury impanelment. They happen once a year in Scott County. I've gone to the last 5. I've talked about it many times on this show. Just do a search at agenda31.org and type in grand jury impanelment. There should be some stuff that comes up about it. During after the grand jury was sworn in for their year of service, I asked a question out loud in the courtroom. Oh my God, what's that guy doing? And the judge goes, "Who are you?" And I said, Todd McGreevy. And then the court reporter who's taking the record, typing the record, said, Hold on. What's your first name and last name for the record? And I said, my given name is Todd. My family name is McGreevy. And I spelled it. And I was very, very clear about saying that for obvious reasons if you listen to Agenda 31. Because I wanted that in the record, that I didn't have a first and last name, that I go by a given and a family name. So I ordered the transcript of the proceedings, cost $75. Got the transcript. Met with the woman who provided the transcript in the courthouse. She handed it to me, and I flipped through it quickly, went to the part where I had said that about my name, and she had put first and last name.
Yeah.
Did not report what I said out loud. And I said to her, I looked her right in the eye, and I said, this is not what I said. That's not what I said. And she was prepared for me, too. You could tell. She was ready for this. And she goes, I can't type what I didn't hear.
Right.
So you can't even get that simple syntax proper in terms of a recording, can you imagine what gets expunged from the record? Can you imagine what gets changed?
And of course, the court is going nuts trying to keep me away from getting a copy of the transcript. The public defender, at the end of the day, handed me a sheet of paper that just had a date. That was it. The only thing on that paper was 7/22/16. It said you have to be here at this time.
We're doing everything else. You just need to have your corpus here so we can extract some wealth out of it.
Well, exactly. And I'm not even allowed to speak to the court now because I have an attorney that has been imposed on me who works for a federal agency. And it's nuts. So, but fortunately, like I've been saying on the show, every bit of what I've been doing has been written for purposes of showing it to a federal judge, of grabbing that record and bringing it to a federal judge. That's the whole thing. I had no faith in the Superior Court. They are corrupt. They are the enemy of the people. It needs to be dismantled. And, as far as I'm concerned, every single one of the people who operate in the state courts today should be banned from ever being able to work in federal government. By their very status of working for a federal employer, they are, by law, banned from operating as a authority holding any type of civil office of profit or trust in the Constitution of 1849. Yet during my trial, during the arraignment, they reference the 1849 Constitution as a source that gives them authority over me.
Man, you got to keep that in mind. That's huge.
Well, the thing that's amazing is they put it in the record. The city attorney put that reference to the 1849 Constitution in the record, and then referenced it and said that by virtue of me being in that state, they have authority. So, but in the court, to show you how willful they are of ignoring their status as federal personnel and then imposing 14th Amendment status on you, is when I brought up to the commissioner about all these agencies having federal employment identification numbers. She's like, "Well, I'm not going to talk about that."
Yeah. Of course not. It's fascinating what happens in terms of timing here, because I received a handwritten letter from a friend, Larry Bell. I brought Larry up several times on the show. He's been trying to aver his non-federal citizenship for a long time. He's not been very successful at it. He's been arrested many times. He's gone to state prison for driving while barred. He has a target on his back, big time, here in Scott County. He got a beat down, literally a beat down, unconscious by a state trooper roadside. It maybe did permanent damage to him. I mean, it's not a successful story. But I bring him up because he hand wrote this letter to me, Corey, and in it he goes on and on about the federal EINs, and he lists the EIN numbers of the sheriff's office, the treasurer's office, the attorney's office, the clerk of the court. He's already done the research. It's right here.
Yeah.
Boom.
And he's in state court, right?
Well,
he's not in federal court, or is he in federal court?
He's not in. Well, for just a point of clarification, even though it's called state court, they have EINs, so it's still federal. But we're talking about just layers of escalation, if you will, in terms of
the administrative division of the federal government called a state. That's what he's being prosecuted under.
That's right.
Not one of the federal courts.
No, he has not gotten to federal court on this matter. He's attempted to file in federal. He's filed in federal court, and he's gone after some marshals and so forth, but he had not to any
success,
substantive results. And unfortunately, he's hooked up with the American consulate. What's this place called? Here it is. The United States of America Department of Travel.
Oh no!
Yeah, usadot-gov.org.
Yeah,
it's just a facsimile of. It looks like it's all official, and the sad part is, right there on their letterhead, they're in Washington D.C. with the zip code. They're as federal as you could possibly get.
Exactly.
Claiming, to help him with, travel documents and an American foreign national status and all this stuff. And I mean, he's. I feel bad for him because this is a way to, show them something, like here's my ID, this is who, and it's not happening. So I'm bringing him up because A, sometimes it pays to know what not to do, and B, he just is hovering over that same target and just did me the solid of sending me the EINs of all the agencies here in Scott County. So and they're all federal. They're all federal. It should be a bellwether moment for anybody listening to Agenda 31. If you still haven't grasped what we're talking about, that the government that we end up interfacing with on the local level that is asserting itself in these fairly pedestrian matters, which we assert are the foundations of even larger matters that mean even more than whether or not you have a driver's license or license plates. If we can't even establish the record truthfully and honestly regarding one's citizenship, one's diversity of citizenship about these matters, what's going to happen when serious things happen? Like, I don't know, pick something, forced inoculations in your county?
Yeah.
How about IRS, trying to take somebody's house where they live? Things like that. How about, heaven forbid, that you are the victim of violence perpetrated upon you by a so-called law enforcement officer? Heaven forbid that, here in Scott County, we have an emergency management agency that established a new taxing authority for under the auspices of 911 dispatch, and put it on a whole new tax line item. And it turns out they never even had any bylaws filed for their own existence. It's government gone wild.
Yeah, they're out of control.
And the federal personnel are not going to adjudicate or manage or bring to justice their own fellow personnel. They're all in the same boat. They're not gonna hold each other accountable. They're gonna set separate little privileges and standards for themselves versus the rest of you slaves. And most, Corey, the challenge is that a lot of people don't care.
Yeah, I'm amazed at the apathy of a lot of people.
They just don't care.
Yeah. They just kind of think, well, whatever. It couldn't be that bad. It's part of it, I think, is when humans have a thought that will challenge deeply held beliefs. Our brain has this mechanism that we've talked about it on the show. There's a thing called a video. It's called a FEIN's theory of everything. It talks about modern physics, and so it's a few years old, but there's some new understanding in modern physics that a lot of the old school scientists would just plain reject. And this video goes through and explains why their brains are rejecting this type of science. And now, a few years later, it's pretty well established that these theories that all the old school scientists rejected have a lot of merit. And the reason why they were rejecting these theories is that these scientists had spent their entire lives focused on a certain type of model for their physics. And this new model that they had would require these people who had dedicated their entire lives to this science for them to admit that they were on the wrong path, and that there's a different path that seems to be more effective and more scientific and more accurate, but it contradicts the established scientific theories. So these people would listen to the theory, they would discuss it, but moments later, the brain goes back and rewires the memory so it allows them to hold on to the deeply held belief that their theory is correct that they've worked on for the last 40 years or so. And I think that a FEIN's theory of everything on YouTube is a great video to watch, and then think about it in the context of being in the United States. When I was in court, they asked me, in fact, the judge mocked me when I said I'm not in the United States. And they kind of say, oh, really? Well, where do you think you're at? And I responded instantly with, I'm within the borders as stated in the 1849 Constitution, which is a jurisdiction foreign to the United States. And she goes, no. The state of California is in the United States. Like, just straight up, we're going to ignore code. We're going to ignore everything. So that way they can hold on to their deeply held belief that they are correct.
We're going to ignore history. We're going to ignore the law. We're going to ignore black and white letters on paper.
That's it. Very much like what many of the old school scientists who kind of would hold court. In fact, in one of the articles I read probably 5 years ago on this subject, one of the observers wrote that the scientists who were kind of trying to hold on to the old theory and squash any research into the new theory reminded the author of being in a star chamber, of how ridiculous their notions were to block people from being able to research and provide evidence that these newer theories are correct. And I mean, that's amazing. You have scientists who are, subject to this and just purposely hanging on to an old theory that has dwindled quite a bit in popularity and dwindled in its acceptance by scientists. But in the beginning, those people were holding on to that. They wanted to squash the other side, for lack of a better term. And that's exactly what's going on in our courts. Every single one of the people who operate in these state courts, their job, their pension, their livelihoods, their mental stability it's required for them to believe that they hold plenary power in the state and that they have the power via one of the several states. And challenging that is something that they're going to, by their own deeply held beliefs, they are going to fight it. And the only hope we have, I believe, is getting a win in the federal courts. And the reason for that is, in the state court, what I'm averring says, you guys are out of business. I'm no longer one of your customers. I'm done with you guys. I don't want anything to do with you, and they lose that revenue. The federal courts, however, are completely different. If I decide to be a 14th Amendment citizen and go through the courts, or if I decide to be domiciled in one of the several states and reject the 14th Amendment as having anything to do in my life and not have any U.S. citizenship in me, the federal courts are still in charge. They were put in place to adjudicate disputes for people who are in the several states. So a federal court judge would not be in a position at all to have a reason to say, no, you cannot aver Article 4 citizenship in the same way a judge in a state court would require it. I mean, the entire state court system could absolutely collapse in no time if a critical number of people realize that, hey, I don't need the federal government. I don't need to be anything to do with the federal government. What I want is to be free, and I'm free under Article 4. You don't get any benefits. You don't get anything that you're used to, and right now it's difficult. When I say getting benefits that you're used to, like from the government, it's very easy to identify yourself if you have a birth record. Just go up and grab one and say that's you, and you can get almost any service from government that you need. No longer use that birth record, and now it becomes a little more difficult. But there are lots of people today who are in a position that their personal lives would be so much better if they were to aver Article 4 citizenship, and they had the protections of the government to be able to maintain that citizenship. The state courts would collapse in a month. That's my personal belief. But it doesn't mean the entire government would collapse. It's just one of these disgusting cash cows that just suck wealth out of people, and that would collapse. But so many other functions and organs of government would continue to exist, both legally, lawfully, and as a necessary element of government for the people. So there is a epic struggle, I believe, ahead of us between the people and these corrupt, administrative 14th Amendment state courts.
Ideas are very dangerous things.
You mentioned the ability for the feds to hear this diversity of citizenship, and you and I had a text message back and forth last week. I spent some time with Tim in Illinois, and he brought up, how does the Supreme Court have the authority, or federal courts for that matter, to hear a diversity of citizenship case that you're pursuing, Corey, and when they are actually federal government, just like SCOTUS. The entity you're dealing with is the state of California, and that is a federal subsidiary. And so here you have, are the feds really going to adjudicate their own body? And he's saying, as opposed to a citizen from one of the real several states suing a citizen from another real several states. So back in the day, before there was a big, prolific, monster federal government, if I was a Kentuckian and I had a matter with a guy from Indiana, a Hoosier, and we had a dispute, that was between two state citizens, and then that was where the federal court was there to adjudicate between those two state citizens, I think is where Tim was going with this, versus you averring your status as a state citizen. Do you see what I'm talking about?
Of course, yeah. Well, let me see. I think what he's saying is that the Article 3 diversity of citizenship would be between a citizen of a state and a citizen of another state. Under Article 3, that could only be Article 4 citizens as far as that diversity. If you have a 14th Amendment citizen from California suing a 14th Amendment citizen from Texas, what you have is a person whose domicile is in one part of Washington, D.C., suing a person whose domicile is in another part of Washington, D.C. And there's no Article 3 diversity there. So in order for those two people to have access to the federal court under diversity, they have to go to the statutory laws, and that requires a $75,000 minimum amount in controversy in order to access the the federal courts for diversity under the statutory requirements for diversity. Now, as far as diversity between me and, say, an administrative division called the State of California, I wouldn't word it that way. I would word it that it's diversity between me, a citizen of one of the several states, and whoever it is, whatever agency it is, like let's say the California Judicial Council, and then I would put that they are a federal agency, and so the diversity is between me and the United States, and that's covered under Article 3.
Okay. I just wanted to check that box because I think it's important.
And can you hear me?
I can hear you, man. You can't hear me?
Huh.
What is going on?
There we go. I wonder if
I think you get some headphone issues.
Yeah, I'm going to switch the location of where I'm outputting sound. Give me 1 second.
Yeah.
Huh. Now it's telling me I have no speakers at all. My computer is not recognizing any speakers. I'm going to mute for a second.
Okay.
You need to watch for bad behavior and make sure anyone in the halls during class has a hall pass, okay?
Hall pass! Show me your hall pass! Hall pass! Show me your hall pass!
All right, I can't get my computer to output to any other audio source than this one that I'm having trouble with. So
can you hear me all right?
I can hear you great right now. If it goes away, I'll try and do this little...
Right, we'll keep rocking here. Let's you happened to record when the court wasn't in session your conversation with the public defender.
Yeah, and it's real important to note that the court was not in session during this time.
Yeah, and this is, I think, in terms of the timeline, towards the end of your day, and it was towards the end after the second commissioner had admonished you for being disingenuous and delaying the court, and I think that from what you shared with me, Corey, the line of questioning to you to determine if you were competent to represent yourself, as I recall, what you shared with me was that it wasn't as much about whether or not you understood the legal background of things. It was whether or not you were willing to comply with the process.
That's correct, yeah.
Right?
That's all it was.
It had nothing to do with your knowledge of the law or the books or the history or the statutes or the words or anything like that. She was saying to you over and over, I just need to verify if you're going to go with the way we roll here.
Right. We need your consent.
Yeah.
You're going to give us consent or we're going to take it.
So much for representing yourself. And you asserted time and again, I believe, that, hey, I'm not waiving any rights today.
Over and over again, I'm not waiving any rights. I said that. I also rejected the idea that I'm going to represent myself to the court, said I am advocating for myself. I am myself. I'm not a representation of myself.
And this is critically important because of that one statute that we've talked about before. I'm going to see if I can find it on our own website here, on one of the back issues here. It was to do with the word may enter a plea.
Correct.
Right?
So
refresh my memory on that one.
The law, the code says that, the charging document, I forgot exactly how it words and where it's at in the code, but it basically says that, referring to a citation, that it's a charging document to which the defendant may enter a plea. It's not shall enter a plea. Now, what the courts say is that if you don't enter a plea, they can enter a plea for you. But the rules are that the courts only have that permission if you're represented by an attorney. And what they try and do is get you to say that you are going to act as your own attorney and represent yourself as your own attorney. So if you agree to that, then you're acting as an attorney that they say they're going to treat you just like any other attorney, which is bullshit. If they treated you like any other attorney, they're going to, help you out and stuff, which is not what happens. They are brutal on you. And it gives them the idea that, well, you said you're your own attorney, so we can enter a plea for you. And it's disgusting. So the entire time I was holding on to, I don't want an attorney. I'm not going to act as an attorney. I am going to advocate for myself, and that's it. I'm just advocating for myself. And you're allowed to do that. Not even allowed. That's a secured right. You also have a secured right under the Sixth Amendment to counsel. There's no possible way that the term counsel under the Sixth Amendment could possibly mean a California State Bar licensed attorney where the California State Bar is a federal entity. There's no possible way that the limitation of that definition, of that word, is that definition. Yet that's what they do via the 14th Amendment. And the 14th Amendment requires consent. So the consent has been purely manufactured by the state. My withdrawal of consent is factual. So there's nothing there except absolute tyranny, trampling on your rights. And what they're doing is they're stealing a country. That's what they've done, is steal a country. They've done it by having lawyers occupy every political office. They're infested the judiciary. They've infested the legislative process. The attorneys are everywhere. And they've now gotten to a point where they say, look, we're just in charge. We just do whatever we want. One of the requirements of the evidence code in California, and it's evidence code, I'll look it up real quick. Let me get it. It's I think it's 421 of the evidence code. It is, 451 of the California Evidence Code. If we look at 451 and 451A, it says judicial notice shall be taken of the following: the decisional, constitutional, and public statutory law of this state and of the United States. And then it goes on to some other things that it has to do. Well, one of the public statutory laws of this state is California Commercial Code 9307H. Unambiguously states the United States is located in the District of Columbia. And I brought up to the commissioner, said the court shall take judicial notice of California Commercial Code 9307H, which unambiguously states the United States is located in the District of Columbia. The commissioner said, I'm not going to do that. Just straight up. And that is the way all of the governments are acting. They just pick and choose the codes they want to use. And when they pick a code, like, for example, the city attorney is saying that I don't get access to any of the records of the DMV. I don't get any access to any records at all. The only evidence that I'm allowed to have, besides what they introduce, is a driver's license to prove I had a license at the time I was stopped. That's the only bit of evidence that I'm allowed to have, which doesn't exist, so you must be guilty. The Section 520 of the Evidence Code, which is an excellent piece of code, they're averring in their did I lose you again?
I'm here, man.
Okay. They're saying the prosecution is saying that I have to prove that I'm innocent, that it's assumed that I'm guilty and I have to prove that I'm innocent. Section 520 says the party claiming that a person is guilty of a crime or wrongdoing has the burden of proof on that case. So they have to prove that I was in that state. The residency requirement, there's only two places that I'm aware of where they can prove that I'm subject to the vehicle code. One is establishing residency. And the vehicle code is very clear on how residency is established. They can't do it through any of those because none of them apply. The other side is the being a state or federal employee. And they mocked me about being a federal or being a state employee, but never touched on the residency portion. Just never even touched on it. And then said, by virtue of me claiming to be within the borders of California as stated in the 1849 Constitution, they have jurisdiction, which is completely outside of law, totally outside of, they're not following the 1849 Constitution by claiming or inferring that they have jurisdiction. They're federal personnel, so they can't possibly have any type of civil office of profit or trust within that government. They're not following their own statutes and codes, and they're not following the federal Constitution. That is the definition of a rogue government.
I wish I could find that that code section about if you're not represented by counsel or an attorney.
Oh, yeah, that's rules of court. I'll pull that right up.
Because that was critical to where you were. If they could get you to waive your right to counsel and say you are representing yourself, then you are acting as your own. You are representing yourself as an attorney for yourself. Then this little rule we're looking up doesn't apply because there's an attorney in the room now for the defendant. That's the nuance, correct?
That's correct.
It's very critical.
Very critical. They only have permission. I just sent it to you. It's 2016 California Rules of Court.
Yep.
Rule 4.100 under arraignments, Section 2, a plea of not guilty must be entered if a defendant represented by counsel fails to plead or demur. Oh, you know what? Maybe with the demur, I might have blown it on that now that I look at that again.
Let's see. At the arraignment on the information or indictment, unless otherwise ordered for good cause and on plea of not guilty, including a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity, the court must set dates for trial, giving priority to a case entitled to it under law, and B, filing a service of motions and responses and hearing thereon. A plea of not guilty must be entered if a defendant represented by counsel fails to plead or demur.
So it's possible the demur I may have opened up that. So we'll see. But the demur is based on the demur. They ignored a huge portion of the demur. They didn't address different issues. In the courtroom, this was in the morning session, the commissioner would look at when you file a demur, you have to cast doubt on the charging document. I casted doubt on the charging document in multiple places, and they just ignored it. They said when they look at the document, it looks fine, that it just looks fine. It doesn't matter that the information on the document is correct or not. That's basically what they said, is just I look at the four corners of the citation and everything's filled out and it looks fine. But the information must correspond according to the rules established by the California Judicial Council, and it doesn't. And the court itself, through officers of the court, which is the prosecution, they're not using that address to send documents or proof of service. They're using a completely different address that they made up that they have no authority to use. They're just making up an address and not following the address on the charging document.
I think you're good on this, Corey. It says a plea of not guilty must be entered if a defendant represented by counsel fails to plead or demur. So by you not being represented by counsel and not claiming you are counsel for yourself, which would be counsel,
right,
is what they were trying to set you up for, by not having counsel represent you, then the plea of not guilty is not required. They're saying if you have counsel and you fail to plead or demur, then it has to be a plea of not guilty. This is why she wanted to tag you as your own counsel. There had to be counsel present so that when you didn't plead, they could enter the plea on your behalf. That's what these rules of the court say.
Right.
So I think you're good.
I agree. I think I'm good. I usually try and give my adversary more credit than they actually deserve. That has me operating safely. So. Or as safe as I can. But it's pretty clear that they must have needed me to have an attorney because the time period was just 2 minutes of counsel being appointed, counsel saying we accept, the judge entering a not guilty plea, and everything was over in 2 minutes. While I was objecting, I said, I fire my counsel, you're fired. None of that works. But the judge or the commissioner She called into doubt. She goes, I don't know if you wrote these. I don't know if you got this off the internet. She's referring to my motion to strike and my motion to compel for evidence. She goes, I don't know if you wrote this. I don't know if you have an attorney writing this, but you clearly appear to be disruptive of the court. You appear to be incompetent. All these different things. And then she goes, I'm declaring you incompetent and I'm finding your true name to be Corey Brandon Ibe.
Yeah, let's talk about that. That was a big point of contention. In the morning court, did they try and get you to say what your true name is?
The term true name never came up in the morning court. I don't think the true name information is necessary for infractions, but they need a true name for criminal activity, which is what they're now alleging. The ticket started out as a misdemeanor with, potential jail time. It was reduced to an infraction, but as penalty for fighting it, the state came back and reaffirmed through somebody who signed under penalty of perjury and signed under, they signed a charging document using a faulty document from the Highway Patrol.
And they signed to reassert it as a criminal matter.
As a criminal matter, and my understanding is they're trying to do more. I heard the city attorney talking to the morning commissioner right at the end of the day or the end of the session in the morning, and she was trying to have me taken into custody the minute I walked into the other courtroom. And the commissioner said that's probably not going to happen because they'll release him on OR. And the city attorney was very upset at that. She wanted me in jail right then.
Wow.
I mean, she was pushing for it. So it was to the point where with the witnesses, you could hear what was going on. You could see what they were doing. So I handed, all the personal effects that I didn't want taken by them to my buddy Luis, who was in court. Which, I just can't reiterate enough how grateful I am to have had those witnesses there. Wednesday would have been an even worse nightmare had I not had those witnesses. So they, then for the afternoon session, when we first walked in, they had me come up to the podium right away. And immediately a sheriff's deputy comes up within 2 feet behind me, pulls out his handcuffs and start rattling his handcuffs, all in an effort to intimidate me when I first got in the courtroom. So I guarantee you that sheriff's deputy that was there is never going to forget that particular moment. I'm going to put together a very effective or as effective complaint as I possibly can for the way the sheriff's deputy was attempting to intimidate me during the courtroom. I did go down with Luis and we did talk to the top sheriff's deputy in that courthouse, in Courthouse West, and he said he would talk to the deputy, and after that incident, the deputies behaved. But they behaved as far as not being so crazy with their intimidation. But the female deputy who was there, man, she just scowled at people. She looked like if she could, she would just walk up and mace everybody in the audience. That's how she was.
Burn the villages, burn the farms.
Contempt.
Let them know what it means to choose the wrong side.
You go against the grain, and they're going to just try and just beat you down with intimidation.
Yeah. It is a fight.
So back to the true name. So in the afternoon, the morning commissioner's name was Gast, G-A-S-T, right?
Yeah.
That's her last name because she's a federal personnel. She has a last name. What was the afternoon commissioner's name? Do you remember?
Let me see if I can look it up. I don't remember.
Okay. Well, while you're looking
I'll see if I can find it.
It's not critical this second, but that afternoon one wanted you, as you were recounting to me last night when we were talking, wanted you to admit that your true name was a first and last name of Corey Ibe. In fact, didn't she at the beginning of her procedure that day spell your name incorrectly at the beginning and go Corey Brandon E-B-I?
Over and over again, they said my name wrong, and then I told them I have ID, and a copy of my ID is on the record, and it was Oh, I found her. The commissioner is Rebecca Omens in Department 103. The telephone number there is 818-989-6803. And that's the commissioner who was in the afternoon session, who, when she was describing into the record my common law ID, she took the apostille certificate and said at the top of the ID, it says State of California, as she was inferring on the record that the identification was issued by the state of California. Yeah. So I'm hoping that all of that information, because she did not describe the ID correctly. And she described it as an identification issued by her government, which is absolutely incorrect. The apostille, all that does is verify the notary. That's all that does. It has nothing to do with the ID. It doesn't mean the ID is issued by the state or anything. So she was manipulating the record in bad faith on purpose, taking a notary authentication certificate and turning it into something that it's not. It is pretty amazing. And I know they're going to change this transcript, but I think they're going to have a difficult time adjusting the transcript to cut out everything, because the entire time was a battle. And if they keep in the way she described the common law ID, and then another judge looks at the common law ID, he's going to know right away it was not issued by the state of California. When I walk into the security checkpoint in federal court, they recognize it as a valid state ID, but not a state-issued ID.
Rebecca,
and there's
who?
a huge difference.
What's her name?
Rebecca Omens, Omens.
Oh,
and I'll give you
what a name, Omens. Gast
no
and Omens. That's who you got to deal with. Goodness gracious. So Ms. Omens is trying to get you to say what your true name is. And I think what you did was you said, I don't know what a true name is. Explain what a true name is.
I said, I have a given in surname or given in family name. I don't know what a true name is. And they wouldn't explain what a true name is. The city commissioner or the city attorney stepped up and said, well, they called his name in the other court and he answered. And she goes, okay, I find your true name to be Corey Ibe.
Wow. Just an ad hoc little throw in by the prosecutor, and then they get to go, okay, here's what we're going to rule on the fly.
Yeah, the ad hoc throw in plus the willful misdescription into the record of my common law ID resulted in them declaring her finding of my true name.
And where is anywhere? I mean, the charging document doesn't have the word true name.
No, so it has first, middle, last name.
So this is like middleware. They're like introducing middleware into this out of nowhere, just whole cloth.
Well, if you look at the charging document where they revert back to criminal misdemeanor charges, that they say whose true name is unknown. So they put in this charging document saying the true name is unknown, and then during the court trial, the commissioner found my true name to be Corey Brandon Ibe. I mean, they won't provide, so far they're dodging me on trying to provide a transcript. I've requested a transcript. Now they've got a position where only the attorney can get the transcript, is my understanding. So when I talk to another friend of mine who's familiar with this type of process, once they've appointed an attorney to you, you're not even allowed to talk to the court to get your own transcript. You have to get it from your attorney. So I'll be, the public defender's office, I think they are foolish to play this game because it puts them in such a difficult position that when they're dealing with somebody who views the public defender's office no different than the city attorney's office, and I'm defending a completely different jurisdiction than what they operate in, that really is a real problem for professional standards and the obligations that an attorney has. So she's an officer of the court participating in fraud to represent me. She knew I did not want to be represented. And during, I think we have it whenever you want to play it, but at one point she asked me a question that got me pretty upset.
Yeah, we're going to play it here in 1 second. I'm real curious. It's been a while. I mean, I ordered a transcript of the grand jury impanelment. I wasn't a party to any matter necessarily. I got a transcript. Can't I just go pay for a transcript of something that happened in the so-called public courts? Can't anybody go get it?
I believe that's the case. I don't think a defendant should have to pay for a transcript when they won't allow a recording. But even if we needed to pay for it to get it, right now, they won't even say who the transcription service was, who was the person doing the transcribing. In court, when I asked for it, they told me I have to get it through the attorney. They wouldn't tell me who the transcriber was. It wouldn't say anything. So they're just hiding it like what they did.
This is obstruction of justice, and this is foundation for a RICO case, dude.
Well, I think so. You have multiple agencies, the DMV, conspiring to produce false information on their computer records against the law. Their own laws say they have to have certain things. For example, they have to have an application for registration. Their own laws require that before an account can be opened, the appropriate fees have to be paid. But no, what the DMV did was they created, out of thin air, they created a registration account and then instantly marked it as expired. And without any application or anything, they just did it. So you have the DMV involved, the Public Defender's Office, the City Attorney's Office, the city, and the California Highway Patrol. All of these agencies, all of them have federal employment identification numbers. A lot of these people don't have oaths of office at all that I've been able to find so far. Certainly with the CHP. The CHP has admitted to some of the officers on the scene that they cannot locate an oath of office. They've admitted that in writing. So the laws are that if you have never taken or subscribed an oath of office, you cannot enter upon the duties of which you've been appointed. You cannot be a peace officer or a CHP officer, even in federal jurisdiction, if you have not signed that oath of office. So the arrests were illegal. That was brought up in my motion to compel. It was also brought up in my demurrer that the arrest itself was illegal. The officer was subpoenaed to bring his oath of office to the June 7th court date, and the officer never showed up. And all of these documents were squashed by the public defender. Everything that I had put in place was stopped, and it's all under the guise of being incompetent.
And you'd think that a public defender would see the advantage for their so-called client, the defendant, that, oh my gosh, the guy who wrote the ticket doesn't have an oath of office. We should just dismiss right now and be done. I don't have to handle this case anymore. I can get this guy out of here.
Yeah, no,
I can chalk one up. I can chalk up a win.
Right. Yeah. Except the public defender, there's a reason why the guy before didn't want a public defender. And it's an interesting story. Talk to him for a minute. He got a ticket a few years ago where the public defender was, they were trying to, he's a black man. And of course, what they did when he didn't want a public defender, they sent a black sheriff's deputy to go talk to him outside the courtroom. And Luis and I went out there. And even Luis, who's black, he said, "Oh man, dude, they played the bro card on you." Right? And the sheriff's deputy's out there going, "I'm just trying to help you out. Here's what you need to do. It's the best thing for you." And he said, "You know why I don't want a public defender? Because a few years ago, the public defender came to me with a deal that I was going to have to do 2.5 years in prison. My mom went and talked to the city attorney, and in 3 minutes, the city attorney dropped it down to 6 months, and I served 1 month out of that. So the public defender was trying to get him 2.5 years in prison, while the city attorney and his mom worked out a deal where he did 1 month. He goes, "I don't want a public defender. They put you in jail." And I can see that. The public defender is fully in bed with the city attorney's office.
They're probably fully in bed with the jail. There's probably some kind of kickback on the jailing side, the revenues generated out of that.
I'm sure of it.
This is important work, and everybody who's listening knows it, or else they wouldn't be tuning in. And I don't know where else on the interwebs worldwide you're going to hear firsthand account, and you're going to hear a recording of what I find to be a fascinating and ugly, compelling exchange between this public defender and Corey. Where else are you going to hear any of this? Where else are you going to find anybody who is fighting tyranny, making this battle like Corey is?
The shit's chess, it ain't checkers.
And Corey requires some support, everybody. It's time to, if you haven't signed up for one of our subscription levels, it's time. This is going to get more heated as we go. It's going to require more resources. for Corey to continue to bring this to a head even further at up the ladder on the federal Article 3 courts. We have this Compass Club. It's $31 a month. That may seem like a lot to some people. Okay, how about $3.31 a month? We have that level at the subscription level as well. We have $10.31 a month. We have $31 every 3 months. So depending on how often you want your debit card or PayPal account to be pinged, we have some levels there. I don't know how much more sincere I can be that a very little bit goes a long way. And if we had, I don't know, pick a number, 500 to 1,000 people kicking in $3 a month, Corey can look what he's done with what very meager support he's gotten, and imagine what he can do with some more substantial support. And I'm really, really imploring listeners to step up to one of these levels. You just go to the website, agenda31.org. In the top corner, it says subscribe and support. It's right above the D of the Agenda 31 in the background there, right above SCOTUS cases. It says subscribe and support, and it comes up with subscription levels, and you'll see them right there. You can select one, and it's a monthly recurring level. And if you don't want to do recurring, if you're like, hey, I don't want to be on some, recurring thing, there's a donate button on the right. It's a yellow button with blue letters, donate. You can click that. You can donate any level you want for a one-time level, and that'll go right to Corey's PayPal account, and it's critical. It's critical. Please support what you're witnessing here, and to Corey's credit, he's not getting cocky. He's not acting like he knows everything. He's adjusted along the way. He's willing to admit his mistakes. I mean, when you listen to this public defender tape, and I last night said to Corey half jokingly that if we were smart, we wouldn't play this on the air free, so-called free, right? We would hold this back and say, hey, if you want to hear this public defender exchange with Corey, you got to be a club member and make it all inside the club. And we're not going to do that. I mean, we don't want to be so like paywall heavy that we do that kind of stuff. We don't have to mess with that. We want to open this up. More people should know what goes on. It should be transparent. But it can't be done without support. It just can't be done without support. He's gotten the moral support, the physical presence support of his friends at the courthouse that's immeasurable. And that goes so far. Those of us that can't be in the courtroom with Corey, those of us that can't, show up and maybe give him a ride or go pay for a transcript down the street, kick in. Go to agenda31.org and kick in. It's time. It's time. All right. Let's go to this clip. We're going to play this sucker. What's this gal's name?
I never got her name, never got a business card. I have no idea who she is. I would only recognize her on sight.
Really?
Yeah.
Because we got to
I asked for a card. She didn't have one. I mean, it's,
wow.
She works for the prosecution.
Wow. Well, I want to find out if she has an oath of office.
Well, yeah, we will find out.
And those two commissioners, that should be reviewed.
Yeah. Well, the oaths that'll be part of their obligation when I file in federal court. That's going to be a part of the record. Every single one of their oaths will be filed in federal court.
Hello again. Long day today, huh?
Yes.
Right. So let me tell you real quick.
I'm going to tell you really quick.
Okay.
You're here for an arraignment. This is an arraignment court.
Whoa, I'm going to rewind that. Sorry. I'm going to tell you real quick, she says. You with me, Corey? Hello?
I'm here. I just muted it during the
no problem.
thing.
All right.
Hello again. Long day today, huh?
Yes. Right.
So let me tell you real quick.
I'm going to tell you really quick.
Okay.
You're here for an arraignment. This is an arraignment court. You can represent yourself if you want to represent yourself seriously. If you want to, you need to answer the court's questions without rhetorically asking her questions back. If you go by the name of Corey Brandon Eve, you need to answer. My true name is Corey Andrew.
But I don't know what a true name is. My given and surname is that. There's no documentation that says anything about a true name.
You don't have a birth certificate?
No, that's government property. That's not me.
Are you mentally ill?
No.
Wow. Are you mentally ill? You got your mute on again, Corey. She just said,
are you mentally ill?
Yeah. Because you claim that the birth certificate is government property. She wants to know if you're mentally ill.
Yeah.
She was waiting to say that.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have a birth certificate?
No, that's government property. That's not me.
Are you mentally ill?
No.
Okay.
Wait, why are you asking if I'm mentally ill? You just asked me if a government property is if I have a birth certificate.
I'm asking you these questions because you have been very combative with the court. This court has no beef with you.
This court has no beef with you? Really?
Right.
How can she say such a thing?
Yeah, she's advocating for the court. This is somebody who's supposed to be my advocate, is advocating for the court for me to do things that are harmful to my citizenship.
You know, she's the one who's mentally ill.
Yeah, I agree.
This court has no beef with you.
Well, it would sure seem to me like it does because I've brought up information that they just...
She sits on the bench and she arraigns people. This is an arraignment.
I can tell you why I don't want an attorney right now. It might help.
She sits on the bench and she arraigns people. That's what she does, Corey. You just have to understand. I'm trying to help her arraign everybody.
Yeah.
You know, you're being combative by asking rhetorical questions, she said.
Yeah, rhetorical questions.
What kind of question did you ask? Like,
I never asked any rhetorical questions like, you know,
well, when you say,
can't we all just get along?
Yeah.
There was nothing like that. I
Yeah.
never did what they said.
Yeah. I mean, when you say something, I'm guessing to the effect of, please explain what a true name is.
Yeah.
They're considering that a rhetorical question.
Yeah. Any question you ask is a rhetorical question, according to her, if you're not just saying my true name is. Like, just comply.
I can tell you why I don't want an attorney right now. It might help to understand. It's my...
I'm just saying that this isn't an arraignment court. This court...
Do you want to know why I don't want an attorney?
No, I want to explain what the function of this court is.
Okay.
This court either makes you plead guilty or you plead not guilty. That's all this court does. And if
my skin is crawling listening to this freaking voice of this woman, dude.
Oh, dude,
I can't handle this. This is fucked up.
Yeah, it is. It is bad.
She is. Talk about disingenuous.
Oh, yeah.
She is talking out of both sides of her mouth the whole time here. This court pleads you, and then she stops and corrects herself, and you plead. No, who's doing the pleading, ma'am? Which one? Which one is it?
The rules say.
I mean, oh God, this woman is. Ew.
This court either pleads you plead guilty or you plead not guilty. That's all this court does. And if
That's not what the rules say.
That's what this court does.
So are you saying the court doesn't... Where would I find the rules then? Because I'm going off of the rules of court. Is there a... You said this is what this court does.
I believe that the demur was denied. Is that correct?
I'm not referring to the demur. The demur was overruled.
Okay.
I'm referring to the court rules where it says a defendant may enter a plea. If I decide to not enter a plea, then the court has the authority, if I'm represented by counsel, to enter a plea. But there's nothing I've found that if I don't have counsel, there's nothing that...
So you have three options, sir. You can either represent yourself, and if you want to do so, the court needs to be convinced that you can represent.
You just made a superb argument, Corey, of what we talked about earlier. I mean, that was on the fly, in the heat of the battle, succinct, non-combative, and not rhetorical. You explained it perfectly, and she just ignored it.
Yeah. Must be mentally ill.
Represent yourself. If you don't want to represent yourself, and you qualify for the services of the Public Defender's Office, our office will represent you. If you don't want our office to represent you, then the third option you have is to contact a private attorney.
So let's rewind to the three options she presents you here. This is fascinating to me. Effectively, all three options are you have to have an attorney.
Yes.
So that a plea can be entered on your behalf. I mean, this is really, really important information. This is such. I mean, even a U.S. citizen, a federal citizen, in this situation could get to this Waterloo moment where they say no. I don't. Right. I don't want to have counsel, and I'm not claiming I am my own counsel. I'm not claiming I am me. I am a federal. I mean, they might say, yeah, you claim you have a true name, you have a driver's license, so we get to manage you anyway, guy. Too bad. They'll probably do that to him. But this is critical because the rules of the court do say that you may enter a plea. And it says a plea of not guilty must be entered if a defendant represented by counsel fails to plead. And
Correct.
You're saying I'm not represented by counsel. So that you got them at a stopping point, and they're just blowing past it. And here's the three options you have. Three different ways you can lawyer up.
Our office will represent you.
Exactly.
If you don't want our office,
you have three options.
Represent yourself. If you don't want to represent yourself, then and you qualify.
Hold on, sorry.
If I don't have counsel, there's nothing that...
So you have three options, sir. You can either represent yourself, and if you want to do so, the court needs to be convinced that you can represent yourself.
Okay, so you can represent yourself, meaning you have counsel because you're representing yourself.
Acting as your own attorney.
Yep. And of course, we get to determine whether or not you get to do that, and it's going to be not based on your legal prowess. It's going to be based on whether you're going to be subservient to our process.
Right.
So there's that.
If you don't want to represent yourself, and you qualify for the services of the public defender's office, our office will represent you.
Okay, so you don't want to represent yourself, but you need a public defender, and you're poor enough to that you get one, then we'll do it. And then we'll make sure the plea of not guilty is entered, and you get railroaded.
If you don't want our office to represent you, then the third option you have is to contact a private attorney and have that attorney represent you. The court will give you 10 days to come and bring your attorney. Those are your three options, sir. But
this woman needs to be brought up on some kind of charge under color of law, man. She is not doing. This is not good.
I'm really curious about the transcript because I think the attorney's words on the record can be used as evidence to show what type of willful misconduct that attorney was engaged in. So I'm hoping that the transcripts, if the transcripts are, let's say they take all my words out and change it around, but they leave the court personnel's words correct, I believe that this city attorney or this city public defender is going to be in a position where she's liable for criminal activity. It's criminal activity if what I think she did, which was conspire with the city attorney to deny me rights secured by the Constitution.
I think I was telling Kathleen about this last night, my wife, this being what we were talked about, and it was a big flag for us that when you told me that the woman started spelling your name wrong at the beginning of the procedure.
Yeah.
And she's like, they're doing that to cover their ass. Because when you do bring this RICO case and you do bring, some kind of, Title 18 or color of law matter against these people, they're going to go, oh, no, we were dealing with EBI.
Right.
I don't know. That might be they're out. I don't know. They're just
it might be, but it's going to be difficult because copies of my common law ID are already on the record. Like I have file stamped documents that show it was filed, and then that's what she read from. So they're just willfully doing these things. They're willfully creating a false record. They're willfully violating their own codes, their own statutory law. They're willfully ignoring statutory law that the court shall take judicial notice of. It's a star chamber. It's no different than a star chamber.
It's bad. It's real bad. We've still got about 8 minutes left on this, 7 minutes left on this. I want to play it all. I have to go unlock a door, Corey, real quick for somebody who's returning. I will be right back in moments. Stay tuned.
you need to watch for bad behavior and make sure anyone in the halls during class has a hall pass. Okay?
I'm back. All right, let's finish up listening to this public defender here.
Fantastic.
Guilty or we plead not guilty. If you plead not guilty, then this case gets sent to trial court, and that's where it will remain until this case is resolved. If you want to plead guilty, then you accept the offer that the people are making. No one is forcing you to accept the offer. If you don't want to accept the offer, the only alternative is for you to plead not guilty.
Where does it say?
She never said what the offer was, by the way.
Yeah. What offer?
Right.
Yeah. But you didn't ask her, though, did you?
I did later. It's not recorded, but I did ask her at the end of the proceedings, what's the offer? Where's the information? What's all that? And she said that come back on the 22nd.
There's something that says that I personally must enter a plea. I believe it becomes an appealable issue if the court enters a plea on my behalf and they don't have the authority to do it. That's what I'm defending, is that on this particular instance in the arraignment, I have the ability to represent myself, and then they're asking me to waive my rights that I can't get a public defender after this moment on that motion. I'm not willing to do that. I may need an attorney the minute she enters a plea for me. As soon as the plea is entered, now I can appeal that. It becomes what I believe is an appealable issue.
That's not, you're saying, then why not allow the public defender's office to represent you from the get-go?
I'll show you the rule.
Because if you're, I'm talking about practicality.
Of course.
I'm talking about practicality, Corey.
Right.
It's just not practical for me to deal with the rule. Why don't you just allow us to plead you out?
Yeah.
Of going pro per for an arraignment when eventually you want the public defender's office to defend you.
I think that's a very valid question. I'd like to answer it, and I'll show you my understanding of the rules of court. I just pulled my papers out, so here we go. So, under arraignments, 2016 California Rules of Court, it says a plea of not guilty must be entered if a defendant represented by counsel fails to plead or demur. So, I don't want to be represented by counsel during the arraignment, and I don't.
But this means that if by counsel, it means as a pro per representing yourself. If you're representing,
I'm not representing myself.
the.
That's a crazy thing. I am myself.
But, sir, meaning that you are speaking as an attorney on your own behalf.
I'm not. I'm not an attorney.
Then you need to have the public defender's office represent you. Will plead you not guilty.
They just can't deal with it. They just can't accept that somebody wouldn't have counsel.
No, they can't. Because the rules say if you don't have counsel, the deal is done. If that person doesn't enter a plea, it's done. That's why they go through all of this
gyrations
to be able to declare somebody incompetent.
Oh, yeah. Because then she was very exasperated with this exchange.
She was so frustrated.
Oh, yeah.
If anybody represents me during the arraignment, I'll fire them. They're not my attorney during the arraignment. I don't want an attorney during the arraignment. But I don't want to waive my rights to have an attorney immediately following the arraignment. That to me seems very simple because they say over and over again, I have the right to an attorney at any time during the proceedings. But then they're wanting me to sign a piece of paper that says the court may not give me an attorney after I sign that on that paper that she gave me. I don't understand why that's difficult to comprehend, how I would see that as being prejudicial.
Sir, the rules of the court says that the court must set dates for the trial giving priority to a case entitled under the law and filing and service of motions and responses and hearing thereon. Once the case gets sent to the trial court, you can file your motions and they have to...
She's fast-forwarded to it being sent to trial court. It doesn't get sent to trial court till a plea is entered.
Right. Yeah.
She's just bypassing the whole crux of what the problem is.
And then bypassing the rule that requires you to be represented by counsel.
Be heard in a timely fashion.
But prior to it being sent...
But a plea of not guilty must be entered if a plea of not guilty must be entered if a defendant represented by counsel fails to plead or demur, meaning plead guilty or to demur. You filed the demur and it was overruled.
Okay.
Okay. So if you're not going to plead guilty, then you have to enter a plea of not guilty. And if you're not represented by
You'll
an
have to show
attorney,
me somewhere where it says that that's
this
what
is
I
the
have to do.
plain language.
It's plain language, and it says
It's the
represented by
it's-
counsel. Doesn't it?
There's three options for you.
Right? It says it right there, represented by counsel. She tried to slip the demur in as if you had, because you, but you were not claiming you were represented by counsel when you demurred.
Yeah, not at all.
Yeah, and she's trying to say pro per, because that is on your paperwork, the word pro per.
Yeah.
Now, what does that mean? I'm going to grab.
For oneself, let me see.
I'm going to grab Bouvier's right now and see if it's in here.
The Nolo Press, which I recommend if anybody has a driver's license and wants to fight tickets, Nolo Press, Nolo, puts out a book called Fight Your Ticket and Win. It's a great resource for people who are in the system to help, fight things that are in the system. But Nolo Press is saying pro per is a term derived from Latin in propria persona, meaning for oneself.
Okay, so could they construe that to mean represented by counsel?
Well, I think they would find it difficult to make that leap in a different jurisdiction. It just seems like a completely different jurisdiction would view pro per. When I say a different jurisdiction, I'm talking about federal courts, that pro per would be you're without an attorney. You're just advocating for yourself.
Without counsel.
Yeah, without counsel.
Yeah, I'm going to see if it's under in pro per. It's not under pro. I'd like to look in the hard copy too, just to see if it's here. I don't know if it's INPRO.
I bet because it's used in these state courts that we would probably find the definition of pro per in Black's Law Dictionary.
Black's, yeah. Silly me, I keep trying to refer to the
Because
Bouvier's.
Bouvier's is more of a constitutional dictionary.
Yeah, for the several states.
Right.
Heaven forbid we'd want to deal with the several states here. In pro per. Well, nonetheless, you continue to assert that. And let's do a quick sidebar, because what the result here is that there has been no plea yet, correct?
Well, the court entered a plea on my
did?
behalf. Yeah.
Oh.
Actually, no, I'm not sorry. Yeah, the court did, but through the defense attorney. She's the one that entered the plea.
Oh.
And that happened in literally a span of maybe 45 seconds to a minute from the time the exchange was. The commissioner said something to the effect of, well, if the public defender's office will take you. And then that's when she stood up, walked by me and said, we accept him. The commissioner said something really quick. The defense attorney said, we'll enter a plea of not guilty. We've talked to the people and we've scheduled a date for such and such. All of that happened in 35 seconds to maybe a minute, if that. And then the whole thing was over. She handed me a piece of paper and said, come back on the 22nd.
Wait a second. Did you say that she said after she accepted you as her client that she has already spoken to the city attorney?
Yes. Which means it infers that she was speaking to the city attorney prior to her representing me.
Whoa.
Well, I talked to a good friend of mine who works in a law office, and I brought this up, and this was late last night. And he said that if you can prove that, then it's career ending for both the city attorney and the defense attorney. He's an attorney who works in the system and is a friend of mine, but kind of thinks I'm a little eccentric is what he refers to it as. But he is now beginning to understand. In fact, he found some information that was really fascinating for an attorney to look up. And he ended up referencing California Commercial Code 9307H in a conversation I had with him a few weeks ago. But he's a very articulate attorney who deals with mostly contract law. But he said that if he were caught talking to opposing counsel about a matter, about a person, before he represented them, his career would be over with. He goes, if that came out, his career would be totally done. So he said that he found it very difficult to believe that in open court, a defense attorney would say something the way I recall it to be. So we'll have to see what the what the transcripts say.
Oh, wow. You guys shouldn't be doing that.
These people are just operating with impunity, man.
It is way, way crazy. Pretty scary, too.
I'm just going to have to repeat myself again.
I don't need you to repeat yourself, and I don't want to be adversarial with you because I really want to win your heart and mind to help me after this moment.
I know.
I believe at this moment it is incredibly important for me to not have an attorney. That's what I believe. I believe that's best in my defense. But I also believe it's very important for me to not waive any rights. And the rights that they're asking me to waive would give the court the ability to make it where I can't proceed with an attorney if I wanted one from the public defender's office. And that seems very prejudicial to me.
Well, unfortunately, you can't have it both ways, sir.
Well, the court is wanting it both ways.
No, the court is not wanting it both ways. It's
They
saying
are.
that you choosing to, if you want to appear on your own behalf and represent yourself before the court, you are your own person.
Mhm.
But before the court, you are representing yourself in this criminal matter. You are.
This is critical this concept, because it proves, in my view, this type of what she's saying, that the birth record is what's on trial.
Exactly.
And if you're going to,
and now I'm representing the birth
record, and it's what's up. It's what's going on.
Yeah,
it's right there.
Yeah, that's exactly it, and that the imposition of a birth record as a form of personal identification against your will, I believe, is a element that would be is an activity prohibited by the federal government, because it would be similar to a title of nobility. You're not allowed to say who you are. It's the government saying, you're our property, and here's the information we have ascribed to you.
I'm not representing myself.
Yes, you are.
How? How does that lead? It's impossible. I am myself.
You are yourself.
You could represent someone.
No, I'm myself. I'm myself.
Well, you're an attorney, so you could represent someone.
But if I have a case and I want to represent myself as my own attorney, I have a right to do that. And you have a right to represent yourself as your own attorney.
But what she's not saying is you also have a right not to represent yourself.
Right.
I mean, she's got down this cul-de-sac of no other way out. Like, there must be representation. And that's because the thing being adjudicated is a freaking piece of paper.
Exactly.
If that's what you want to do.
Well, that would mean I'm practicing law as an attorney.
That's why the court asks you the questions about what is your legal background. And she herself indicated that it appears that you are able to represent yourself.
Well, then, if the court is so worried about this, if it's not a big deal, then why don't they just enter a plea and move forward?
Boom!
Yeah.
What if they have that kind of authority? Why are we going through all of this trouble? I'm not trying.
The court's not going to enter a plea on your behalf because the court has not.
She said she was going to.
I didn't hear her say that.
Well, she did. She said she would enter a plea. And she entered a plea for the defendant right before me.
No, she didn't. She didn't enter a plea. The attorney entered a plea.
Oh, got it. Okay, that's what I mean.
The court is not going to enter a plea on your behalf. Whoever represents you, and I use that term as putting this case.
What are my consequences if I refuse to enter a plea?
She'll probably put you in custody.
Okay.
She'll probably accept bail, and she'll hold you in contempt, possibly, because you are.
None of that stuff, what she's saying right there, is possible. Because if they could have done that, they would much rather have put me in jail than go through this. Because if they could have put me in jail and then assigned me an attorney and then stack up bail against me and everything, guaranteed they would have done it. They do not have the authority to hold you in contempt of court for failing to enter a plea. Otherwise, tons of people would be held in contempt of court. This attorney was advocating for the prosecution.
And you are asking questions that seem very self-explanatory to everyone here except for you.
Let me ask you a question.
The questions are self-explanatory to everybody but you, Corey.
Yeah.
You're the oddball here, And again, we're back to the presumption of guilt, because if they were operating under the presumption that you're innocent until proven guilty, everybody would be moving forward with the concept that we got to answer his questions because we got to prove guilt. But they're not. Oh, no. We don't get to answer. We don't have to answer those questions you're asking, Corey, for us to define what true name is or how you are represented by counsel. I mean, no, hell no. You're guilty, man. You got to prove to us that you got a piece of plastic. You're in the wrong room.
California Commercial Code.
We're not dealing with the
I know we're not. We're dealing with the state of California.
We're dealing with the criminal courts.
The criminal courts that operate in the state of California. Is that correct? Okay. I've asked the
Dude, I could not keep my cool like you did. There's just no way. I would be. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it.
Well, I got to tell you, it is when I get home after these types of engagements and it's over with, it is no different than the feeling of having been in battle. I'm absolutely exhausted. I feel sick. It is incredibly difficult to deal with the stress that these people impose by all of them conspiring to deny constitutionally secured rights, including the guaranteed right of a Republican form of government of California organized by the Constitution of 1849. And it's stressful.
The very Constitution they cited in their own proceedings.
Exactly.
The Comptroller General of California.
What is your line of business?
That is not a matter.
It is a matter to me because you...
I'm an entrepreneur. Yeah.
Okay, and when I look at... Let me tell you from my perspective, because I do this day in and day out.
Because I sell people down the river day in and day out.
Exactly, yeah.
For a long time. When I see what you are being charged with, I see that this is a really simple, fixable...
It's not simple. This is a huge, huge deal. To me, it's a huge deal.
And why is it a huge deal? Well, did the officers treat you unfairly? Were they rude to you?
Yeah.
And is that why you're...
I believe that they did... No, that's not why. I got rid of my license in 2010. I got rid of my license for very specific reasons. Not because I'm trying to get away with $100 and not paying fees, or that I...
Constructive criticism.
Yeah.
I got rid of the driver's license. I returned the state's property to them.
Yeah, it would have been a better way to word that for sure.
Rather than my driver's license, that possessive could, it keeps,
yeah, because it never was my driver's license.
Right, and it keeps the concept that, we all have. You get what I'm saying.
All the hassle that I've been going through since I got rid of my license. I can't do my original business that I did. I've given up a lot to personally take this on. I've taken on many authorities, and the part of the application for the driver's license.
In order for you to even be speaking with me, you need to qualify for the services of the Public Defender's Office.
This is classic, this part right here.
Right. In order for you to even speak with me.
Yes. Well, what have you been doing for the last 10 minutes, lady?
Right.
Speaking with him. Now, all of a sudden, you're getting some information that's a little challenging in front of you, and you play the, hey, we may not be able to represent you unless you're poor enough card.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Well,
So
yeah,
we
exactly.
This conversation, because I don't feel comfortable. Now I don't feel comfortable.
Many authorities, and the part of the application for the driver's license.
In order for you to even be speaking with me, you need to qualify for the services of the Public Defender's Office. So before we continue this conversation, because I don't feel comfortable, now I don't feel comfortable talking to you.
Why?
Because I don't believe that I can talk to you without you filling out this form, without me knowing.
She didn't answer the question.
Yeah, no.
I don't feel comfortable talking to you because you haven't filled out this form. Really?
That you
I have no
qualify.
income in the United States.
Okay, well, without me knowing what your financial ability. So before we continue this conversation, because I don't feel comfortable, now I don't feel comfortable talking to you.
Why?
Because I don't believe that I can talk to you without you filling out this form, without me knowing that you
I have no
qualify?
income in the United States.
Okay, well, without me knowing what your financial ability is to hire a private attorney.
Yeah, I don't have a financial ability.
Well,
I have no,
I will not qualify you to work with the public defender's office if you do not fill this form out, and we can qualify you.
you can, Los Angeles Public Defender, defendant's financial statement.
I think these are your notes.
So, no, those are not my notes.
Okay.
So, let me just throw this out to you.
Sir, I'm not going to talk to you until you fill this financial form out so that we can see if you qualify, because we work with indigent people. And
I don't have any money.
I'm asking you to fill this out.
Okay.
Okay.
So did you fill that out, this form?
No, what I did was it had an area that said need to be signed. So I was going through the top section, just putting zeros in it. And then I was looking at the rest, and I was not going to sign the document. And then she just took it and said, "Oh, he completed part of this, scratched it," she said to the commissioner. And all it was some zeros on the top, like just there's nothing there. So it was just 100% all the way through. There's no difference. I can't tell any difference as far as the intention and the actions between the city attorney and the public defender.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'll show you a section on why it's a problem. You're asking for federal information, a Social Security number. Anybody who is eligible to participate in Social Security under Title V is considered federal personnel.
Okay, well, we're going to have to continue this for 2 weeks so that I can assess whether you qualify for the service.
Do you want me to give you the...
So she says you're going to have to continue it for 2 weeks so she can assess your financial qualifications, yet shortly after this, she got assigned to you.
Right, yeah.
That's weird.
Out as much as you can with your date of birth and your address.
Okay. So, but let me show you. So you know, the address you're asking for a zip code. My address doesn't have a zip code. My address is non-domestic.
I'd like you to just put down what your address is.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's in the court file. I'll show you right here.
Well, why can't you rewrite it?
Well, I'm happy to rewrite
okay,
it.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Everything.
I'm not
doesn't
trying to be
have
adversarial with you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, just write your address.
I'm just protecting stuff. Oh, that's it.
Just do it, slave.
Yeah, well, I thought it might be advantageous to put on there my non-domestic address because it's already in the court file and it's just reiterating it. And then if they go through, I'm going to get a copy of that document. If the public defender goes through and changes my address to a domestic address, then that's another claim of violation of the Postal Reorganization Act.
The shit's chess, it ain't checkers.
Incredible job, Corey. I mean, F and A. What the hell?
It's
oh my.
So the next step, like I predicted before, is that I'll have to get this into federal court. And the way you get something into federal court is through jurisdiction issue, constitutional issue, any type of federal jurisdiction question is what you need to be able to get this into federal court. And I think that there's certainly federal questions at issue. And all of these people who are acting this way are federal personnel. And that will be in my complaint for declaratory judgment and injunctive relief as a method to remove the action from state court and then stop it and bring it to federal court so that they would have to prosecute via federal court where they won't be able to. That's my theory anyway, you know.
No, I think it's a strong one. You've been consistent and persistent, and I still can't implore people enough that they need to step up and subscribe for $3 a month, $3.31 a month, $10 a month.
We got some donations last week.
Okay, good. Really?
Yeah.
All right, that's encouraging.
Yeah, so we got, I'll just read off some names. Tim, appreciate your donation. Tim actually spoke to him on the phone. Alex O'Brien, Christopher Rigney, Jesse Anderson, $20. Some new Compass Club members, Cody Wooten, Jennifer McCulloch, and William Griffin.
Well, this is exciting. I didn't know this.
This is fantastic.
Yes.
So,
Well,
and then also a donation from Paul McCarthy. So these donations, I mean, while all of this is going on, Todd, we're still trying to make a living here, trying to keep our head above water. And I can't tell you, this week, having these donations come in to be able to cover some Uber costs and other things, it was the difference between being able to make it this week and not. That's literally how tight this is, because while all of this is going on, remember, we still have rent to pay, still have bills to pay, and this is a literally full-time job being able to fight this ticket. It is a full-time job. So heartfelt gratitude, thanks, and Article 4 karma to all the people who donated this week.
absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for the contributions. Great shout out for everyone there. And you're doing more than fighting a ticket, though, Corey. I hate to be corrective.
Well, that's true.
You're availing Article 4 state citizenship and reinvigorating the several states, which is one of the only ways. It may be the only way that this federal leviathan that is giving billions of dollars of aid to foreign companies, foreign countries, so they can just buy more armature from our military-industrial complex. That is, I mean, we have infrastructure that's crumbling across America, but we're just sending billions abroad so they can just buy more bullets. We are asserting a peaceful solution here by availing Article 4 state citizenship. There is no injured party in this matter. The only injurious thing that might happen is if a bunch of people understand and determine what Corey is doing is prudent, that the state will have less revenue to waste. And when that waste goes away, then they have to get lean. That's the problem. They're overfed.
And they could just take whatever they want. And when you look at the fines that are charged in this court, it's insane what the damage it does to people. I mean, to a lot of people who barely make enough money to cover rent, food, and expenses, they don't have the resources to be able to handle these onerous fines, these fines that are just crushing. And they're done in such a way that if you don't pay that fine, then they take your license away, and now whatever method of income you have is in jeopardy. And so the amount of pressure that this agency has on the people and the amount of wealth that they are extracting in just the one courtroom that I saw, and this is a building with, I think, 17 floors on it. And the traffic courtroom that I was in, they have several of those traffic courtrooms that are all doing the same thing. They are just extracting massive amounts of wealth out of us. The half of the money that is taken for a traffic light camera, that goes to a company that is an offshore company. It's a foreign jurisdiction that they have us paying fines to. Other countries are getting money for the fines that we pay, that the original setup for these fines was that it was supposed to go back to the community. Kind of like in an office, if you have a cussing jar, you say a bad word, you got to put $1 in it, and then the office gets a party at some point. But that was the idea behind traffic fines. Now it's pure extraction of wealth. They've allowed that they keep the actual fines themselves very low and reasonable. So, if you see you get a ticket, it's like a $235 fine. Okay, that doesn't seem so, that's a lot of money, but doesn't seem so bad. What happens is they have these penalty assessments that they add to the fine, and it makes the fine 3 to 4 times more than what the published amount is. So if you have a $235 fine, you're going to end up owing $700 to $800 on that fine.
You're doing really, really good work, Corey. It needs to be everybody. I saw that you responded to one of the comments online. I appreciate that, Corey. I got to go back and approve comments more often. There's been some good ones out there. You can check them out. You can see on the right side of the blog there that has recent comments. We encourage you. You've been listening to what we call the lowest risk, highest reward podcast in the universe, and I encourage you to, if you can't make a donation, can you please spread the word about what you've heard here? You can take, I've got some new album art up there. I've got one for the last show, 86, called "Casting Doubt on Quizzacious Court." on the mocking court, and we've talked about it. It is the DMV acts like the Hotel California. You can check out, but you can never leave. We've got a little ode to the Hotel California album art for last show up there. Share that on your social networks. Post it on Twitter. Send some art around. Visuals do help get people engaged. Send people to our podcast. Encourage them to subscribe. There's just, you're not going to find the effort being made that Corey's making anywhere else that I'm aware of. There's a handful of people that go to the mat as much as Corey does, but those that I've seen do that, like what's his face out there on the East Coast? What was it? Rod, remember him?
Drawn a blank.
Rod Class.
Oh yes, Rod Class. Yeah.
I don't recall the results of Rod Class, other than I think he got put in federal jail.
Yeah, Rod Class. My readings of what he's done, he's very, very intelligent, and I think he's in Texas actually.
Okay.
But what he's missing, and this is something I've contacted him a couple of times on, is the importance of Texas v. White. That the government that's running today is not the original government that the justices said is guaranteed to the people in Texas v. White. That government that operated prior to the Civil War has never been reconstituted. It's limping along purely on federal power, and it's never changed. And the courts were very clear as to which government the people had secured rights to, and that which government was guaranteed a Republican form of government. And so his error, I believe, is he's arguing constitutional rights while maintaining federal status. And that is the only criticism I have of the works that I've seen with him.
And thus, why I brought it up is you're unique, Corey. You're completely unique in my view of what I've seen out there, and it deserves support. We appreciate your efforts out in California. This is the lowest risk, highest reward podcast in the universe, and we encourage everybody to ask themselves, what is their strategy to make a difference? Subscribe, support, and share agenda31.org.
Okay, guys, let's get out there and make a difference.